Like Dick said, we're going to talk about preparing for the future workforce, and this presentation pretty much is going to talk about how to address, like you said, the retiring workforce and prepare for the new employees that we're going to be hiring in. So my company, Momentive, just a quick blurb, we're one of the world's leading specialty chemicals, largest producer of thermoset resins, and we really take a total solutions approach to our customers. So today we're going to talk first about the challenges in the workforce and then how we can address those challenges one by one. So one thing that we're noticing is that, how are we going to be able to retain all this information? And we're not just talking about operators, we're talking about some of our engineers, and we're talking about maintenance staff. It goes across the entire plant or, the corporation. It's not just the operators where you're losing information. You need to look at all these areas and take that into consideration with your systems. You need to be sure that your new employees that you're hiring in, that they're learning the right way to operate the plant, and you need to have the tools in place to help them do that. The new operators also need to be able to train cross-functionally so that you can use them in other areas of the plant or even at other sites. In my company, we have decided to standardize on the Emerson Delta V platform in our division, so that way when we need to share resources between sites, all they have to do is learn the process. They don't have to learn the control system because it's going to work, act, feel the same way no matter which site they're at. Also, I know we're all challenged in this day and age about do more with less, and so we have to work safer, we have to improve our reliability, and we have to increase our productivity, even though we have a retiring workforce. We also need to make decisions faster, but we also need real-time data to do that. Again, we have fewer people, and we have retiring people, and we need to make sure that we aren't losing any data that could potentially sacrifice us making business decisions to keep our business moving forward. And at my company specifically, within 5 years, and this includes engineers, maintenance, and maintenance personnel, 17% of our workforce is going to be eligible for retirement. Doesn't mean they're going to retire, but they're going to be there, and they could leave any day. We've had operators do that. They'll let us know one day, and next week, that was their last day, and we've lost all that knowledge. So we need to start getting things in place to make sure you retain the knowledge. And one message to leave everyone with is that, as you see the tombstone at the bottom, the key to all operations, safety is number one. And that is our license to operate within my company. And we always have to put that focus first before anything that we do. And I'm certain you probably have that same mindset, but keep that in mind. So addressing the challenges, the first thing to look at is your control system and some of the global standards that can come along with that. Our sites currently are on 30-plus-year-old systems, and that's not really attractive to some of the newer workforce. It's comfortable for the guys that have been there a while, but some of the newer guys are, this is pretty antiquated, and it's not all that intuitive. So modernizing your control system will help attract new people, but what it's also going to do, it's going to lean on that knowledge from your senior operators to basically pull out the way that the plant should really be operated and help translate that into things like new graphics, new configuration code, and even to help out in your customer acceptance testing to make sure that when you configure your new system, that it's doing what it should be doing. And leaning on your senior operators is the best way to do that. Leverage the opportunity at the same time that you're modernizing your control systems to implement DCS standards. After we made our global decision, the first thing we did before any project was started or funded is we sat down and developed global standards. It will make your modernizations quick, more efficient. You don't have to go through that same cycle in every single one of your modernizations. We're looking at potentially as many as, or as little, I guess, as 15 modernizations within my division alone. And that means we don't have to go through that effort 15 times to define what are our dynamos going to look like, what are our equipment modules going to act and feel like. We've done it once, and now it can all be rolled out with each of the projects. Some of the benefits to the operators, like I kind of alluded to in the last slide, is that the operators can now switch between units easily because it's not about learning the control system over. Right now, within one plant, within one control room, we have operators operating on 2 different control systems, and you can't share them. Or if you do, they've got to be pretty sharp to be able to pick up 2 different systems. So this will help making the transition when you have, say, people sick or needing vacancy relief and you just don't have it, to be able to share between the units. All they have to pick up is the process. They don't have to pick up how to navigate any longer. They don't have to pick up how does it feel, how is it going to act or respond. Your alarms are going to all trigger the same way. They might have slightly different tones, but it's all going to mean the same thing when a red alarm comes up, when a yellow alarm comes up. It's going to mean the same thing. So talking about the global standards, these can be developed for things such as your HMIs, your configuration modules. It can be done for batch systems, safety integrated systems, some of your sequential code like equipment modules if you have similar sister sites. That's not always translatable, but there's still some base module things that you can build in there to leverage, and some of your alarm standards and handling. And again, the beauty of standards, you develop them once, you use them globally. The investment is once financially, and you use it as many times as you need to. So the next thing that you can do to address some of these needs is implement alarm management. That is one thing that, 30 years ago, you get an alarm, okay, great, it tells me something. Oh, but I want to know some information about this, or I want to keep an eye on this. What'd you do? You create an alarm. Is that really the most effective way to operate your plant? Not necessarily, because you're getting a lot of nuisance alarms. If you're creating an alarm, you want to make sure it's truly an alarm. So going through this process, you're going to weed out what is not an alarm. If there is no action to take to get you back to steady state, then it is not an alarm. So you need to go through this process to really weed out some of the nuisances that your operators are dealing with. This will help your operators respond quicker to abnormal situations and return the plant back to a normal operating state, which means you're not making as much off-grade as well, potentially using excess energy or raw materials. What we're doing in my company as an idea for a solution for this is we use Exida for our SIL alarm. It's basically a documentation database where we can capture all of our alarms, we can rationalize them and determine if they actually are an alarm or are not an alarm, categorize them, and populate them with information about, okay, if this alarm is triggered, what do we need to do? And why is it even triggered in the first place? And again, this is another opportunity to use your senior operators, the ones who are operating the plant the way that it should be operated, to basically implement their knowledge into these databases, so when it rolls out to the actual implementation of the other operators are being shown, this is how you get yourself back to steady state. That they shouldn't just be going off their own way of doing it. You're being told right here, everyone should be doing this the same way so that the plant hopefully will always be getting back to steady state quickly and efficiently. And the pairing with that, you have your database through SIL Alarm, and that plugs into Emerson's Delta V Alarm Help. So when you plug that in, the information translates across basically automatically, and it looks something like this, okay? So it will tell you what the alarm is. It'll show if you've actually confirmed the alarm. And it'll tell you what the corrective action is to get yourself back to steady state. And then it'll tell you the cause of it. So this is exactly prime opportunity to use your senior operators and their knowledge so that you don't lose it. It's very important to go through this phase, if you really value what they have. Another way to address some of the challenges is to implement human-centered design. And I know it's probably been called a lot of different things. For me, it always resonates as HCD. And basically, it's a neutral operating environment so that when you do have abnormal situations, they pop out to you right away. The operator can respond quicker and get the situation under control and back to steady state faster. So let's see, I think the best thing to do is show you what we've got here. So this is just an example, and this was actually provided by David Holmes for me. Some things I can't show from my own company, so he was able to give me a couple slides here. And basically, you see the legacy version, which is all black, and everyone's comfortable with that, and that's great. But where are your alarms at? And I'm not going to go through the whole 15-second thing, flipping back between slides, but when you move to the second slide there, with the grayscale neutral, the red pops out right away, the yellow pops out right away, and it just helps the operators really focus on what is important, and what's important are abnormal situations. They still have all their processing information there, but this is highlighting abnormal situations to get the process back to steady state as soon as possible. And again, this is a part of your modernization process. You can do it outside of your modernization process, but if you're already going through one, it's a prime time to have your operators to leverage their knowledge to help get your graphics laid out and help you with those colorations as well. Another solution is implementing a wireless network. Wireless networks basically will enable an operator to step away from the board. Not all plants run with indoor-outdoor operators, and so that means somebody might have to cover their board while they're out in the field. This way you can take mobile devices with you, still watching your process all the while. Go turn a valve, go check a pump, and you can still see what's going on. When you get out in the field and see, hey, something's not working right, I need to change a set point, you can do it right then and there. You don't have to run back and forth, tiring your operators out. I'm based out of Houston, so we all know it gets pretty hot there, and every step outside during that summer heat is very important. Implementing a wireless solution, it can also help keep some of your costs down because you don't have the wiring costs any longer, and it basically will enable your operators to move seamlessly throughout the plant, and essentially it's saving you money because they're working more efficiently for you. And this is just an example of the wireless systems. There's basically, and there is something that you do need to know about wireless systems, which cued in on and had to identify for myself, but there's basically two types. There's a field network, and then there's also the plant network. The field network is lower powered, and the plant network is the higher powered. And it's just based on the devices that are needed to be used and the power that is required. So you need to know what type of wireless system you want to put in. You need to know what you want to do with your wireless system before you decide on which one you put in. One little caveat, a wireless field network can exist within the plant network, but the plant network cannot exist within the field network, and it's a power thing. So just something to keep in mind if you are considering going wireless and you want to mix the two. There's a couple different things to keep in mind, but it is highly beneficial for all the activities that your operators can do and all the instrumentation and devices that you can start implementing, saving costs, and get more information to do more with that information to provide it to, as far up as your senior leaders or even as lower level supply chain to make business decisions to run the plant. Another thing that you can do to help with losing our workforce, but also needing to keep the business running and make decisions is move towards an integrated network. And when I mean this, I'm talking integrate from your DCS layer through all of your MES layer up to your SAP and up to management dashboards, providing that seamless information in an integrated, automated fashion. It takes out the need for operators to sit there and enter things in. Another activity that takes time, costs money, and if there's an error in it and you need to make a business decision based on it, that's going to skew the decision that you're going to make. And there's several different areas that are going to take advantage of this. It's going to be reliability, it's going to be supply chain, purchasing, quality, management. You can tie all these things together. Now, I know this is kind of small, but I've highlighted the main areas here. For my company or my division, we're using Emerson Delta V. And one thing we wanted was one-stop shopping. And so we went to Emerson and found out, they have one-stop shopping to be able to make this happen for us, to do a fully integrated network. You have Emerson Delta V, you have AMS that sits on top of it to monitor your devices. You have Syncade, which pulls all the information up through Delta V and does some of your scheduling planning of like your bill of materials and your batches that you need to push down to Delta V to actually make in the plant. You have Meridium, which helps out with a lot of your asset management and your reliability, monitoring your devices to make sure that you've got the right equipment health. You can tie that also through OSI Pi, an OSI Soft Pi system, to pull on the historical information that is coming out of all those parts and pieces and serve that up through SAP into Emerson Amulet, into one nice dashboard for your senior leaders to say, how are my plants running today? Do I want to compare them side by side? Do I want to drill down into them and see how each one of them is doing? So what you're doing here is you're automating all of these things, integrating them, making that information come out faster instead of waiting 30 days past end of month to get the information and get the report. And so automating things in this fashion, again, it helps in terms of the workforce because you're going to have retirees at the operations level, but you're going to have them all the way up through the other levels too, as supply chain and so forth. So the more that you can automate this, it's going to help you get the information you need faster without always having to rely on the people factor. Another opportunity you can use, as we are having many retirees, is remote monitoring. And again, here I am going to speak mostly to the Emerson side because that is where we are headed. And when your engineering resources are low, your DCS vendor most likely has a solution for you. And in the case of Emerson, they can remote monitor your process for you. And they can also suggest recommendations for work orders, corrective actions to take, preventative maintenance to take. And this is actually a worldwide effort that Emerson can monitor your process wherever they're at in the world, wherever you're at in the world, because of integrating your networks and sending the information back electronically. They can evaluate the information coming in and then send the recommendation back down to you. So if you don't have enough reliability engineers to look at your information on vibration analysis, or even maintenance engineers, if you don't have enough maintenance engineers, they can take this information coming out of your site, evaluate it for you, and then give you recommendations and suggestions back to then go and implement. So if you don't have enough manpower, they can, in a sense, staff augment without even having to be on site for you. And one of the last things to address in meeting some of the needs of a retiring workforce but bringing on new people is training. You need to train your operators on just even how to navigate in their systems. You need to train them on their process. But one of the key things in order to enable all this is the use of simulators to do that. And the key thing is, though, you need to keep your simulators up to date if you really want to rely on this as a tool to help your operators, your new operators that are coming in for training, but also for your operators that are cross-training among units or that are doing their refresher training. This is a very powerful tool to keep everyone up to speed on the technology that's there and keep them current. But you can't forget, it's not just the operations folks. You also need to train your engineers and your maintenance staff because they as well have to be able to support your plant. Maintenance, they need, say some level of DCS knowledge, but they also need to know how to maintain your equipment, your field devices, your engineers. They need to know at least some level how to navigate through your system as well and how to pull the information out that they need to do the troubleshooting that they're going to have to do when there's problems. They're going to rely on their main historian. In our case, it is a PI historian, or they can even go direct to the continuous historian, say in the case of Emerson, to pull information out right there sitting next to the operator while they're talking to the operator. So, but they need to know how to use these tools. Make sure your people know how to use their tools, because if they don't, that's going to be a huge gap right there, people not knowing how to use the tools to do their job. So in summary, basically, all of the challenges that we're being faced with, there are solutions out there. And I think these slides are going out. Is that right, Dick? So I'm not going to read through every one of these, but the point is, all the things that I mentioned on one of those initial slides, there are solutions out there for every single one of these things that you can address them. And you can find more information, like I said, through my solutions that we're using at my company, through Emerson Process Management and their partners Meridian and Amulet, and also OSI Soft and Exida.